Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing another video in the movie Spotlight series with one of my personal favorite horror films from one of my favorite directors, John Carpenter, and that is Prince of Darkness. Now, Prince of Darkness, if you're a fan of Carpenter, you probably have heard of it or you've seen it. It's not really one of the top tier films by him in terms of its popularity. Obviously you have the ones Halloween, The Fog, Christine, The Thing, Escape from New York, Big Trouble in Little China. I could go on, but Prince of Darkness kind of gets overlooked, and it's one of his films from the late '80s. He did it right before he did They Live. It was put out in 1987. And really, the film itself is very, very kind of it doesn't necessarily fit the typical Carpenter mold. It doesn't. I shouldn't say mold because he does a lot of different films, but it's not. There's not necessarily a clear villain in the film, so to speak. It borrows a lot from some other genres. Some of it in demonic possession, and there's a weird kind of fusion of religion and religion and science, which is interesting. But it basically has to do with the Antichrist in one form or another, and I'm not going to give too much away about the plot, but it does do it doesn't necessarily do what you think it is going to do, but the deaths in the film and the way that it kind of conducts itself and the atmosphere is very unique, even for a Carpenter film. You know, you can look at kind of a little bit of a similarity with maybe stuff with The Fog, where you have kind of this rolling, thing coming towards them. Since a lot of the movie just takes place in a single building that basically our protagonists are trapped in for the duration of the movie. So, Carpenter does. He recycles some actors that he's used before in other films. Donald Pleasance, who obviously appeared in the Halloween films. You also have Victor Wong, who a year earlier was in Big Trouble in Little China, as well as Dennis Dunn, who was also in Big Trouble in Little China. And those actors kind of they kind of anchor down the movie a lot. Not so much Dennis Dunn, but definitely Victor Wong and Donald Pleasance. Now, Donald Pleasance plays a priest who is basically part of a holy order, and they're supposed to guard this special church with like something in the basement, and basically he wants Victor Wong with a bunch of his physics students to come in and examine this thing that they have in their basement because he's not really sure what it is. And after that, all frickin' hell breaks loose. You can watch this movie, and when you go into it, you don't necessarily, unless you've seen it or you've read the synopsis, you have no idea what the hell is going to happen. And half the time in the movie, you don't even really know what's going on. You just have horrifying things happening on screen. And that's the thing about Prince of Darkness is it was done during a period in John Carpenter's career where a lot of his movies previous to that had not done very well. Big Trouble in Little China was a flop. You had Escape from New York, which was a relative success. The Thing was a flop. Christine even though it was praised by critics, did not make a whole lot of money at the box office. So he really hadn't had a smash hit really since I think The Fog in 1978. I think that would have been the last time he had a really big hit, and of course the year before that, in 1978, he had Halloween. And then They Live he would do a year later, which was another hit. But Prince of Darkness, again, was kind of in a string of a bit of a financial rut for Carpenter. And that's why it was kind of done on the down low. It was done with a minimal budget. But here's the thing about horror directors that I love, is that a lot of the times horror directors can make a very small budget look like a very large budget. And that's what he did with this movie. I'm not sure exactly what the budget was for the film. I'm guessing it couldn't have been anything over $6 or $7 million. It was probably a lot less than that. And again, he got actors that he had worked with before, who he knew would probably work for cheap. And then the rest of the people that kind of round out the movie, for the most part, are are no-name actors. You know, a lot of people that weren't in anything before that, who may have been in stuff after it, but again, who were really kind of new, and they didn't have to pay them a lot. But Carpenter really shows what he can do with really anything. You know, when you give, that's the thing, when you give a really good horror director a low budget, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a bad product. It just means that that director is going to have to be more creative, and Carpenter is extremely creative in the ways that he does stuff. And again, you can tell that in some of the camera tricks. There's a lot of liquid type of camera tricks in this movie, which again you'll see. But the film does a very, very good job at building an atmosphere, at building everything up, at making it seem like these people are in this insurmountable situation that they can't get out of. And it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And again, it kind of draws on the idea, and Carpenter has said this in interviews, that it draws on the idea of a mixture of religion and science. And he has a few little tidbits in there where they're talking to I believe it's some kind of a translator for a computer. And it's talking about like the god of Adam and stuff like that, referring to like atomic energy or the atomic bomb and stuff like that. So he does try to kind of blend some metaphysical stuff in this, which isn't really necessarily his thing. Sometimes he does it to decent effect, like the mythology in Big Trouble in Little China. Even though it's not thought out, even though it's not really expanded upon too much, it's still interesting. And then you also have the fact that this movie really makes good use of the lower actors in terms of the newcomers. They don't just kind of get pushed to the side. When Donald Pleasance comes in the room, it doesn't just go to Donald Pleasance. When Victor Wong's in the room, it doesn't just go to Victor Wong, and they don't use them to the point where they make all the other actors kind of just feel like background noise. There are some actors in this film that do feel kind of like cannon fodder, but again, they're at least entertaining cannon fodder, which is really what a horror movie like this should do. There's also a very funny, I say funny because I'm a sick person, but a very funny cameo appearance by Alice Cooper as the leader of a group of street people. And I won't give too much away, but there's a segment in this movie with with half of a tandem bicycle that is hilarious, and you need to watch it. But I thought I'd give a spotlight to this movie because it's one of my personal favorites by Carpenter. And it went under the radar for me for many years until I finally looked at his filmography and I saw that this movie was on it. And then after I watched it, I remember I watched it on DVD, and then I immediately went back to the DVD title screen and watched it again because I just thought it was that good. And I really do enjoy this movie. If you are a horror fan or if you are a Carpenter fan, I think you will enjoy this movie. And especially if you are a fan of kind of metaphysical horror movies, not necessarily a slasher film or a thriller or something like that, something that involves like the supernatural and stuff like that, you will definitely love this movie. So that's it for this movie spotlight on Prince of Darkness. Thank you again for watching. If you think you're going to watch this movie, or you have another suggestion for a possible spotlight or something like that, put it in the comments. And make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?